Since the commencement of the Boko Haram insurgency 11 years ago, northeastern Nigeria has seen no peace. Indeed, at the peak of attacks by the terror group against the civilian population and military installations in late 2014, the Goodluck Jonathan administration contracted Kunela Services, a private military company based in South Africa, sometimes known as Mercenaries, to assist the Nigerian military in the fight against the insurgency. In the few months that troops from Kunela were embedded with the Nigerian military, they successfully pushed back against Boko Haram and recovered several local government areas that were hitherto occupied by the insurgents. However, just as the mercenaries and Nigerian troops began to record victories in the battlefield, the federal government, in March 2015, terminated its contract with a private military company for reasons that have never been made clear. Ever since, the Nigerian military, in its campaign against the insurgents, has recorded a mixed bag of successes and embarrassing defeats. This was magnified recently when Boko Haram insurgents slaughtered farmers at Zabamari community in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. The massacre and rising insecurity in other parts of the north has led to the call by some Nigerians for the re-engagement of mercenaries to fight alongside the military against the insurgents. Well, here to discuss their role in the battle against Boko Haram from December 2014 to March 2015, and whether there is still a role for Kunela Services in the war against Boko Haram, is the director of the company who was in Nigeria between 2014 and 2015. He will be speaking to us from his base in South Africa. For reasons of confidentiality, however, his name and identity shall not be disclosed. Thank you, sir, for agreeing to do this interview with Arise News Channel, your capacity as director and spokesperson for Kunela Services. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, well, let's go straight into it. So to confirm, we have you as a guest on this program. You are a spokesperson of a private military company, the company that was hired by the previous National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, and the Jonathan administration. And you then deployed men and material to Nigeria in 2014 to support the Nigerian military in their battle against Boko Haram. Can you give us some background as to how that engagement came about?
Sure. In late November or late October 2014, we were asked by Colonel Dasuki and his staff to pay them a visit in Abuja and to listen to the nature of the problem and see if we could come up with a solution. As a result of those discussions, a planning cycle was done, visits was conducted to the operational areas in the north and the northeast of Nigeria, and eventually a contract was drafted and signed between the government of Nigeria and our company. Our company is called Kunela Services, and at that point in time, we registered a local entity in Nigeria as required by the law, and we then agreed with the government that we would, as quickly as humanly possible, mount an operation in order to help and assist the Nigerian military. It's important to know that the contract is not something, or did not call for us to replace the Nigerian military. The Nigerian military has a proud history. Unfortunately, the Nigerian military has lost, at that point in time, a lot of the knowledge that they required to deal with an insurgency of the nature of Boko Haram. The Nigerian military is trained and constituted and equipped in a conventional manner. It is designed to meet and match another army of the same size and the same type. It is poorly put together and poorly constituted and poorly organized in terms of an insurgency. Our strength lies in our ability and our knowledge to counter a insurgency such as the one that Boko Haram has brought upon Nigeria. Therefore, we were contracted. That was the background to that. We were contracted by the National Security Advisor, Colonel Dasuki, and his office. And I hasten to add that it was that administration and that office that also terminated the contract. It was not the current administration. By the time the current administration took power, we were long gone, unfortunately. And the main reason for that termination was non-payment. We had milestones written into the contract for payments. Those milestones were unfortunately not met by the Nigerian government. Perhaps priorities changed. Perhaps with a view to the election around the corner, people thought differently about where to spend their money. We can only speculate about that, but that was the reason. It was non-payment. It was not non-performance by our side or any other reasons. As a matter of fact, we achieved almost the impossible. Within a month of our operations, for the first time in 3 years, two major cities that was in the hands of Boko Haram, Bama and Warsaw, was back in the hands of the security forces. And also, right at the end, at the tail end of our contract, the Sambisa forest was being assaulted by our unit. So that's how it came about. After the contract was signed, we had to mobilize. The contract called for our own arms and ammunition to be brought into Nigeria. And since this contract was signed in November, most armaments factories and armaments suppliers closed us down over December. It was a race against time. At the same time, and this is very important, we were not going to fight this battle by ourselves. We were going to merge with the best that Nigeria had, and therefore Nigeria gave us their best young men. The airborne unit of the Nigerian military was presented to us. We selected the best of those candidates, almost all of those boys, and we merged in a very tough training program. We merged with them. So you had experienced leadership presented by ourselves, and you had muscle and power and aggression and fantastic fighting ability brought to the party by the Nigerian men. That unit was called 72 Mobile Strike Force. 72 was a designation that meant that we fought under the command and control of 7 Division, which was based in Maiduguri. And 72 Mobile Strike Force was the unit that was created on the basis of that contract.
Well, so Cornella Services is a private military company, or what is known as PMC. Can you explain, for the benefit of our viewers, what a PMC, a private military company, is, and how such a company goes about delivering its services?
Yes, sir, sure. Maybe I should start by saying what a PMC is not. A PMC is not an army, a standing army. Standing armies are brought about by national legislation. And as we all know, it consists out of thousands of troops and many, many millions of bullets and tons of equipment and vehicles and aircraft. A private military company cannot gather that kind of equipment somewhere in warehouse. We don't have warehouses full of tanks and helicopters and aircraft standing around. We buy those things, or we borrow them from our host, or we combine those two methods. We sometimes put technical teams in with our host to rejuvenate their own equipment, rebuild their aircraft, equip them, upgrade them, and then reuse them. And sometimes we use them in conjunction with those forces. So that's the first thing we are not. We are not a standing army. The strength of a PMC lies in what is lacking in the host country's ability, and that is knowledge. Our strength is our knowledge and our experience. Most of the members of our PMC, Cornella Services, was over 50 years old. With 50 years comes perhaps a little bit of slowness on the physical side. As a matter of fact, conditions in Nigeria at the beginning were so strenuous that one of our men lost his life. He died during training. It was because of a heart attack. It could not be foreseen. He had a weak heart, and he was older than 50 years old. So he died. These are the risks that sometimes accompanies that kind of training that was required. But the point I'm making is our men was experienced, and by merging our experience and our knowledge with the power and the strength and the youth of the Nigerian fighting soldiers, you had a fantastic mix. 7-2 Mobile Strike Force was a really unique unit, very strong, well-equipped, and when it went into operations for the first time, it had a resounding success. As a matter of fact, after Cornella Services was withdrawn, 7-2 MSF continued the fight. They did not have the benefit of our knowledge and our experience. They did not have the benefit of our helicopters and our pilots any longer. And may I add, Nigeria does have good pilots. Nigeria does have good aircraft, but it takes many years of experience to be able to fly combat missions in the heart of the night at a high speed, at low level, in order to take on the insurgents. It's not as if this is a standing army that's dug in trenches over many kilometers. The insurgents are divided into small bands As we know, they move around on motorcycles, on Okada. They use vehicles they call technicals. These are typical vehicles that they have stolen and looted. And they put weapons on the back of them and they sleep alone in the bush in small bands. In order to find them and in order to combat them, our aircraft was required. Unfortunately, 7-2 MSF had to fight ahead and fight on without that benefit of that. They did magnificently. I must say that after we had withdrawn, they penetrated Sambisa Forest, our Nigerian boys, and they did fantastic. They released more than 600 camp followers. These are women and children held against their will by Boko Haram. And the success is carried on. Unfortunately, without the benefit of our technical expertise maintaining the vehicles, without our pilots flying our helicopters in their support, their efforts was not enough. And therefore, we now have a resurgence in Boko Haram.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, it's good you talked about the 72 Mobile Strike Force. What was the nature of your engagement with the Nigerian military? Was it just training or maintenance of equipment or area support, or your men, your company were directly involved in physical combat, direct physical combat?
Some contracts issued to PMCs only call for technical support and training. That is where the bread and butter of our line of business lies. But sometimes the contract calls for combat operations to be conducted on behalf of the client. And that was so in this case. We conducted combat operations alongside our Nigerian brothers and with our Nigerian soldiers in our vehicles and under our command and alongside us. And it went fantastic. We did well. Unfortunately, there were incidents. We lost 2 South Africans that were killed. Their blood was spilled in the north of Nigeria. Their bodies are back home and they were buried by their families. Their insurance paid out to the families a hefty sum, as it is in our business. But the operations that we conducted and the way that we fought alongside our Nigerian men was magnificent. It was a success, and if we had been allowed to continue, it would have probably put an end to, at least it would have forced Boko Haram's military operations to a stop. And really, that is what Boko Haram has at this point in time. Boko Haram does not have political power. Boko Haram does not really dominate much of territory. What Boko Haram has is fear. What we brought was a counter to that fear. We were able to show the way. We were the tip of the spear, and following us, the Nigerian military was rejuvenating at that point already and is getting better by the day, I have to add that. They would have destroyed Boko Haram. We would have forced them to either stop, seize, withdraw, or to negotiate.
Well, there was the insurgency, the Boko Haram, but there was also the abduction of 276 Chibok girls, which had occurred in April 2014. Did you get any direct requests to help in rescuing the Chibok girls who had been abducted by the insurgents?
The initial discussions held with Colonel Dasuki focused very much on the Chibok girls. The colonel was, as the National Security Advisor to the President, hugely troubled by the kidnapping of those girls. One could sense that from his and his staff, that was a priority. They were at a loss to determine where these girls were, and that's nobody's to blame for that, because the girls were already by then divided up. By the end of 2014, the largest group of girls that we could find with our aircraft at night from the air was 12. They were held in a house outside Warza, if I recall correctly. They were made to work in the fields in the daytime, and they were brought back to the house under guard at night. The girls were scattered. Some of them had been taken outside of Nigeria by then. So unfortunately, yes, a lot of the discussion was around, and a lot of our tactics and our equipment was designed to raid locations where these girls were being held. Just as special forces all over the world, we know how to arrive on a target in the quiet of night without making a noise. We descend with what's called fast ropes from helicopters, or we land and we walk in, whatever is required. We use night vision equipment. These are special sights that we put on our weapons that enable the weapon to be fired at night. We wear binocular or monocular night vision equipment on our helmets that allows us to see at night. And then we train. And we trained our Nigerian boys in the beginning as in those same tactics in order to raid the location and free the people inside, rush them several kilometers away, put them in helicopters and fly them home. Unfortunately, that opportunity never arose. Our focus changed our mission changed, and it was in direct opposition of Boko Haram, where they were deployed against the Nigerian armed forces.
Well, let me ask you, you've talked about the 72 Mobile Strike Force and the efforts of the young Nigerian soldiers that you trained. But what was the, if you were to assess, what was the quality of the level of engagement with the Nigerian military beyond your interaction with the then National Security Advisor? Did you get the support that you needed, or you had the sense of resistance from Nigerian generals, military leaders?
I would like to take you back in time to the mid-90s when I fought alongside Nigerian soldiers for the first time in Sierra Leone. Nigeria formed the bulk of the ECOMOG forces there. Nigeria was largely responsible for freeing Sierra Leone from the clutches of the insurgency at that time. And the Nigerian armed forces was eventually led by a Nigerian general, General Maxwell Kirby, a very brave man. As a battalion commander, he led the release of Freetown. He was badly wounded, and South African doctors treated him. And a relationship began then that stood the test of time. Then the Nigerian airmen flying Alpha jets, the Nigerian artillery, the Nigerian infantry on the ground was of a higher standard than they are today. I'm sorry to have to say that. Over the years, and I'm not blaming this current administration, they are just saddled with the disaster that has befallen the armed forces of Nigeria. And they are making efforts, and they are slowly rebuilding the proud machine that the Nigerian military was before. When we arrived in 2014, we found nothing wrong with the quality of the men. Let me make that very clear. Nigerians are patriotic. Nigerians are fantastic soldiers, physically very capable, and they were willing to learn. There was a fantastic relationship between ourselves and the men at ground level, and also the support we got from the Army and from the Air Force was brilliant. We even had support from the Navy. Funny enough, we needed a specific kind of weapon. It's a weapon that's common on ships. It's not so common on land, and the then Chief of Naval Staff actually made that available. So in the beginning, everybody pitched in. There was a concerted collaboration between everybody. However, at some point in early 2015, one could sense the priorities, mainly on NSA's side, was changing. We'd already proven by then, we were already deployed in Maiduguri, we'd already done the first operations, we had already proven that this was a winning recipe. By flying our helicopters at night, by swiftly moving from one point to another point, by maneuvering directly against Boko Haram after gathering good intelligence, we were showing success. Priorities had been changing. Politics, unfortunately, overcame military operations. And as any good soldier will tell you, that's normally where military operations will suffer, is when politics become more important. I believe that is what happened in the end. It had nothing to do with the quality of the men or the collaboration. Even to this day, I have many friends among the Nigerian armed forces, and I respect them, and I will fight alongside them any time of the day or the night. Politics, unfortunately, at that time was what stopped our operation. Politics and money.
Yes, you've talked about politics, you've talked about money, you've talked about changing priorities, non-payment of, monetary commitments. But what efforts did you make to ensure that the Nigerian government at the time respected the terms of your engagement and did not default on timelines for payments? Or you just took it in your stride and decided to leave Nigeria?
Now, the contract called for, as I said, milestone payments. And the first milestone payment was made. The second milestone, if I remember correctly, the contract called for 6 milestone payments. It was a relatively short-term contract, only 6 months. The first milestone payment, which was a big one, was paid. The second one was about 3/4 paid. And then we received cash on 2 occasions. And I believe that is because the CBN at that point in time stopped honoring the instructions from the NSA's office to pay us. I'm speaking under correction here. I may be incorrect, but that was where the payments stopped. So we carried on. We stayed in country for about 3.5 to 4 months in total. We did conduct all of our operations. And remember, operations is not just the time where you fight, where you shoot. Operations is also training. Operations is also getting all the logistics in place. We flew tons of ammunition and arms into Nigeria in order to make the actual land war possible. We brought vehicles from South Africa. We brought bullets from Eastern Europe. We brought weapons from all over. We had to do that, and we brought really good stuff in. Nigeria is proudly possessing some unique equipment now that we brought in that did not exist in the inventory before. However, as I said, 4 months was not enough. And because the money stopped, eventually we effected the terms of the contract, and we suspended the contract. Negotiations followed. They were tough, and unfortunately, we were not in a winning position. The NSA's office held all the cards. So we lost that argument, and eventually we had to withdraw.
Well, since your disengagement as the Nigerian government, there was change of government in Nigeria in 2015. So the new government that came in, has there been any attempt on the part of the new government, the Buhari administration, to re-engage or to reach out to your company?
No, and I respect that. President Buhari was very clear when he took power. One of the things that he said he's going to do is rebuild the military. He understood, and his general staff all understood, that the military was not what it used to be. Like I said, I referred to 1995 when I first worked with Nigerian soldiers. The army at that time and the army of 2014 was unfortunately not the same organization. So they decided to do it themselves. They decided to rebuild their military, and they decided to take the fight to Boko Haram without the help from an outside company. And nobody can blame them. For a national government to have to admit that they need the help of outsiders, it's a tough cookie to swallow. And I completely can understand that. I do wish, though, that we had a chance to sit down with the current administration and explore different ways where we could help them. We don't have to be at the forefront of the battle. The Air Force needs training. The military needs training. We bring unique capabilities. Remember, a lot of the training presented by foreign forces is dictated to the Nigerian military. The Americans and the British will send a training team here, and they will say to the Nigerian military, this is what we are going to teach you, and that's it. You have to accept it. Our approach is different. We study the problem. We then design a training program that addresses the problem, and we have our customer, our client, sign off on that training program, and then we swing into action. So yes, I regret the fact that we have not had the chance to engage with the Buhari administration in a meaningful manner. There is value that we can add. But I also respect a national sovereign government's position on that. We are biding our time. We're doing other work, but we would love to come back and finish the work that we had started in Nigeria. The men of 72 MSF still send me WhatsApp messages every so often. They still ask, when are we coming back? They still need all that help. The vehicles, they need to be refitted. That we can bring the helicopters back. We can restart the program. It's true. But we respect the political decision that has been made, and we are on standby. If they call us, we will come.
Well, one major revelation in Nigeria recently was the disclosure by a government spokesperson that part of the problem that Nigeria faces is that major countries of the world, including the United States, refuse Nigeria access to needed military hardware and arms and ammunition. How does that work internationally in your line of business? Why would a developed country, a military power, prevent a country that is trying to fight terrorism, which is regarded as global, from having access to the necessary equipment to do the work?
Again, knowledge is everything. Fighting a counterinsurgency war is an unsophisticated effort. What it does need is really, really good intelligence. And I believe the president referred to that in his recent meeting with some of the state governors. Intelligence is everything. If you know what the enemy is doing and where he's at, you can take him on. And the tools of this war is basic tools. As I mentioned before, Boko Haram drives around in civilian vehicles and motorcycles. They walk, they stay in the bush. They do not have large artillery pieces. They don't have armored vehicles, maybe one or two that they've captured, but not enough to make a difference. And to address that does not require sophisticated or advanced weaponry. It requires the weaponry that Nigeria has in its inventory to be used properly. Perhaps it needs to be renovated or readjusted or updated, but there's enough weaponry in the Nigerian inventory to win the war with. it is a process that the Nigerian military has to go through, unfortunately, because previous administrations and previous general staffs has allowed the army to deteriorate to a point where it's a long, cumbersome process to rebuild. Together with that goes training. As I said before, the posture of the Nigerian military should change. They should change to an army that can fight a counterinsurgency war. And at this point in time, it takes time. It takes time to train men. In a conventional war, a general will issue the orders. In a semi-conventional or unconventional war, it is the colonels and the lieutenant colonels that will issue the orders. They are the ones who make the decisions on the ground. You'll find that the young lieutenant in charge of 30 men will be responsible for an area the size of Lagos State. And they have to make their own decisions. So decentralizing decision-making, adjusting equipment, adjusting tactics, those are the things that Nigeria have to do. It does not have to buy sophisticated armaments, sophisticated aircraft, sophisticated helicopters. Yes, there's gaps in the inventory, especially on the air side. And I believe that is where some of the major countries in the world refuses to sell Nigeria the hardware that they require. But again, solutions can be found. Existing equipment that Nigeria is allowed to buy or has bought before can be rebuilt and can be rejuvenated, and they can be put to good use. Believe me, with the application of a little bit of money and with the correct tactics and the correct equipment, 6 to 12 months of operations, and Boko Haram will be forced to go to the negotiation table, or they'll be forced out of existence.
Well, with the worsening of the security situation in Nigeria, there have been calls recently that what Nigeria needs to do is to engage again the services of private military companies. And you have said that your company, Cornella Services, will be quite willing to be re-engaged, with Nigeria and assist. Now, do you really think that the way forward is for a private military company to be engaged, given some of the things you said about the capabilities of the Nigerian military?
I would not dare to venture and have an opinion about what the national government of Nigeria decides or not decide. It's not for me. I'm a professional soldier. My job is to listen to what the client wants, and if they want us to come and offer a solution, then we do so. Can we do it? Yes, we certainly can. Do we think we can add value? Absolutely, we think so. Nigeria has a large gap to close, and it will close that gap, but it will take several years. We can accelerate that process with training and knowledge and equipment. So my feeling is that there's space for a PMC to come and help Nigeria. Absolutely. Whether it's in direct combat or whether it's in training or whether it's in the provision or the repurposing of equipment and training, combining all of that with the, as I said before, the really great manpower that Nigeria already has. There's various roles that can be discussed. We would certainly be willing to, and we stand by. And if there's a call for us to come and help Nigeria, we certainly would do that.
Well, but before we wrap up this conversation, when you look back now, given the experience you had in Nigeria between 2014 and March 2015, and then you lost some of your men, you couldn't get, payments as due. Do you have a feeling of regret that you took that original contract in 2014 in the first place? Or it's in the nature of your business to win some and lose some and then just move on?
The nature of our business that a PMC is an unwanted entity in many cases. We have had the situation before where funding was not completed and where contracts ended prematurely. It's pretty much part of the territory. Having said that, Nigeria, to me personally, lies close to my heart. I have lived in Nigeria for many years. I have lived in West Africa for 23 years. I have adopted a Nigerian girl many years ago. She's an adult now. Nigeria, my friendship with the Nigerian military when I was a young soldier fighting alongside them in the jungles of Sierra Leone, it's more than business. It's a personal matter. And if Nigeria calls for help again, I would answer that call in a flash. Yes, sir. I would certainly be willing to work again with Nigeria, even considering the fact that we did not get paid and our contract was ended prematurely. These things do happen. We would like to have acknowledgement of that. We would like to see perhaps part of that resolved through negotiations. But if the call comes for us to restart the contract, if the call comes for us to start on a new, different direction perhaps, but in helping Nigeria, we would be there.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Arise News channel and for your contributions and your insights and for helping us to clarify quite a number of issues that, are of interest to Nigerians. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Well, there you have it, the conversation with the Director of Cornelia Services. Nigerians are still talking about mercenaries. What do you think, Tundun? What do you think, Rufai?
Well, I think you did an excellent job with that, because that word mercenaries has been flying around the place. This gives such clarity on exactly what the issues are, what the scope of their operations are, what the state of our military is really like. There's also a lot of speculation about that and just the general perception that our men are completely, overwhelmed. But this interview that you conducted gives so much hope and puts the facts in proper perspective. The caliber of Nigeria's soldiers, their work ethic. Even look at the fact that when the 7-2 mobile force was dramatically reduced by the exit of Cornelia, they did not lose morale. They went ahead and rescued 600 people. This is why I have so much respect for our men on the front lines, and I think all Nigerians really should appreciate them. In fact, the way the plug was pulled out of that operation, they've been doing their best. And I wonder what would have happened if there was like a long-term, maybe 3-year contract signed up front. Thousands of lives would have been saved. I don't want to point fingers, but I do regret the fact that their contract was terminated at the time and in the manner that it was. This was great work. It's so much to process.
Dr. Abati, this is a classic. This is a Pulitzer Prize-winning job, and I commend you. Anyway, I'm never in doubt of your very great abilities, and what you represent in journalism. I'm never in doubt of that. So, but most importantly for me, this just brings back all of the things we know. And number one, it's not heavy armory that fights insurgency. The little armory you have and how you can use it. For me, this was typified when the Chadians came to chase Boko Haram off the borders. They didn't use heavy armory. I'm not even sure they had planes and all of that. They were just using, gunships, and they were using, So they were just using, normal weapons, very good, solid team on ground that was pushing them backwards. And that was all they were doing. And they pushed them backwards, and they had good leadership to lead the pack. And that was what the company brought in there. Leadership, train the boys, tune them up a little bit with the armories they had. You heard what he said. Got bullets from Sabia, got their hardware in, people controlling at the back, and that's all you need. Because insurgency warfare is different. It's different from the normal rag and tack soldiers you're fighting in other parts of the world. You need to be very tactical as regards it. And these guys have great experience. These guys fought in South Africa. They fought in some other areas. Like he had said, he told you that they fought in Sierra Leone. Liberia and the likes. So little equipment, because it's not all the hardware, the surveillance equipment. He said something then that caught me. He said how to fly a plane in the dark at low altitudes to be able to have precision bombing. It's those things you need to tune up. It's the technical aspect. It's that training. It's that rigor.
Oh, we fought in Sierra Leone and we fought in Liberia. What happened to us? What happened? He said it there.
But you hear what he said?
Yes, that the quality deteriorated from the 90s. What happened?
The quality of the military. Anytime I go to Liberia, I've been to Liberia on 2 occasions, they keep saying thanks to Nigerian soldiers because we restored a lot of things in Liberia and some other parts like that. But the quality is not there any longer. And that's what we need a retune up. You heard what he said there. He said, when we came in, the president said he will build the military all over again. So it's a lot of building needed. And I know there's a lot of very funny narrative bandied around saying, oh, the military was definitely suppressed, because they said, they were saying the words of, they attributed the words to General Babangida that it's not good to tune up your military in peacetime and things like that. That's not true. The military has just gone through this degradation. So we need that tuning up again. And from that, it speaks volumes. And you can see the personal commitment. He adopted a Nigerian girl at a point that's now an adult. You can see the personal commitment to all of this. Because, you see, in the end, all we all want is peace. I want to be able to look at places like Bama, Baga, and some other parts of Maiduguri and be hearing good GDP figures coming out of there in trade.
Do we all want peace? Do you
We
think
all
we
want
all do?
peace.
Are you sure about that?
We all want peace.
Are you sure that we all want peace? Because it
something-
appears that some actors
Ordinary Nigerians want peace.
Exactly.
Okay, let me use that word. Ordinary Nigerians want peace.
That's the phrase.
But when you look at it critically, we can't continue this way. Someone has to give. And for those that might not want peace, I beg you, it will get to a stage the center will not hold.
They'll be consumed as well, of course.
It's mutually assured
Of
destruction.
course.
So I beg you, let's all be peace-loving. Let's do what is right. Let's tune up the military. I was proud when he said we have good fighting boys, good
I've always
warriors.
been proud
Warriors in the Nigerian
of our
army, which I'm
military.
proud of. Warriors.
Well,
warriors.
let's hope our generals would now start leading from the front, as we did in Liberia and Sierra Leone, when the generals were, leading from the front rather than from the rear. Well, thank you also for watching that Arise exclusive.